And we are over in the darkness of the hothouse, or relative darkness for me. I'll try and brighten it up again with a little bit of post-production editing jiggery pokery. I've had to turn my lights off because on a day like today, these lights really look like they're flickering a lot on the camera for some reason. So I'll turn you around and we'll talk about the disaster that befell the hothouse throughout August. And we are in. Okay, so we are over where the houseplants are, the traditional houseplants, what you would call houseplants, because of the temperatures. So in here it doesn't go below 17 degrees Celsius. And at certain times of the day, obviously, it's going up to 30 odd because the sun comes round. And if I don't get the doors open in time, then it can get really, really hot. So what happened through August? Well, I practically lost certainly a third of the plants. They were really, really damaged, really, really stressed, mainly because, and I've got to be careful how I say this, because there is nobody to blame. This is just, I am so thrilled and happy that somebody was actually able to come and water my plants. I would have lost them all. And I expected there to be something to happen because there's a lot to look after here, and they are hard to look after. All it does is underline for me how much time and energy I spend keeping them all ticking along. So, if you're ever beating yourself up over looking after your plants, then just leave them with somebody for 2 weeks, come back, and then you'll realise how much you actually do for them. So what happened was my sister came and watered all my plants, and I guess somewhere in the second week she was aware that she was going away before I came back, and it would be about 4 or 5 days that the plants had to survive on their own. And I had actually said, give them a bit more. However, when I came back, they were literally swimming in water. So you're talking about, these trays were pretty much full, I'd say about 2/3 full of water. And maybe on a really hot day, they could have got away with it, but over a period of time, it's not really what they want, and some of them really, really suffered. Some of them, surprisingly, didn't bat an eyelid, but others did suffer. We'll start off first of all with my beautiful Begonia luxurians. Oh, where's it gone? It's down here. So we are down to a couple of sticks and a couple of leaves, unfortunately. So Begonia luxurians do not like to sit in water, not so much water and not for such a long length of time. So I lost most of that. It's not dead though, and I'm really not bothered, honestly. It will come back. It will come back and it will grow, as long as I give it the right conditions, and it will grow just as strongly as before, if not more strongly, because it's starting off with a better root system. It's not like I'm starting from scratch. And this happened with a lot of things. I did post on Instagram and Facebook a picture of a trug absolutely full of things, and in fairness, things did need cutting back. It was absolutely overgrown, completely overgrown. So we'll just have a look at different things, and I'll tell you what happened to them as and when we get up to them. So my Begonia listada down here didn't seem to suffer too much. It's looking like it needs a water now. You can get these curly leaf edges. That usually is a sign that it needs a water. I've just not got around to it. So everything else looks pretty okay. Somebody mentioned, I did a photograph of this. So this is Anthurium crystallinum. So can you see the little speckles? So that's spider mite damage. Now, it has been sprayed. It's not going to, hopefully, have them now. But spider mite, I found, just keep coming back. You can knock them back and you get a bit of growth, but they just keep coming back. And let's face it, if I've got these big massive doors open here, double doors open, I'm just going to get some new ones in, aren't I? These are the worst culprits. So these are my plumeria. I lost a lot of leaves on those just through the spider mite, but we have got a little bloom. Now, okay, this is not the best showing of blooms that you can get on a plumeria, but I'm just thrilled that I've actually got some blooms and they're not all blasted. Again, you can see all the spider mite damage there. I'm waiting for these new leaves to come. A couple of new leaves there, but I just have to keep spraying them because there's nothing else I can do other than get rid of them, and I don't want to get rid of them just yet. So this with a big long name, so this is an Epicattleya. Do you need to know the name? If you do, let me know in the comments and I'll give you an answer to it. But again, had spider mite on it. Since we sprayed it, we've got 1, 2, three coming out, 3 new spikes. It really is gorgeous. That's like a firecracker, isn't it? Absolutely love this orchid. Not a particularly difficult one to grow. Certainly if you look at the rooting system, I'd say it's a very, very easy one to grow, but who cares? It's gorgeous, easy or not. I'm really pleased I didn't lose this Anthurium. So this is my Anthurium warwickwianum. So this is my queen Anthurium. And if anything, giving it 2 inches of water for a week seems to have made it come on even more. But we've got a nice big long leaf on there and it's not losing anything. Quite happy with that. Tradescantia over here. So this one is hijau, and I believe it actually comes from, or it goes back to, once the PGRs have worn off, longicilliata. That seems to be absolutely bomb-proof. The losing of the colour on the leaves, I'm thinking that is more to do with the heat that we had and the sun that we had than anything else. That's actually due a real cutback. So my Maranta lemon lime, well, that just keeps coming. That's doing really well. So do we need to water that? Let's just move around. So over in the corner, really, really pleased with the way this Hoya is doing. It's doing way better here than it did over in the greenhouse. It has several blooms. So that is one that couldn't be drowned because it's in a hanging pot. But I like all the different colours of the leaves. We've not just got the same amount of variegation, we've got varying amounts of variegation. This begonia is not looking too healthy. This has only happened quite recently, and I'm guessing again this is something to do with the heat. So really that needs a real cutback, and I'm sure that will come again. Oh, we've got a surprise blooming, or it will bloom in a bit. So we have one of the Hippeastrums. Now they're supposed to be in dormancy at the moment, but if you want to put plants in dormancy like Hippeastrum, don't leave them in 3 inches of water because that will confuse them, and that's what's happened there. But you know, I don't care, it's still alive and it'll bloom and I'll enjoy the blooms. I'm not that worried about dormancy situations. You know, it'll bloom and it'll go dormant again, and who cares as long as it keeps coming for me. So over here I'm going to do a video on this one. I keep saying I'm going to do it. So this is Begonia size Moriae, or longicilliata, beautiful hairy thing. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I don't want to spoil the video, but if you do like that and you're interested in me doing a video on that, tell me in the comments. Another one that got spider mite over here. So this is, what's this one? Anthurium, Philodendron, melanobullata. I always get those mixed up. And I know there is a difference, and I know what the difference is, but I still get them mixed up. Couple of orchids doing all right, no spikes on them just yet. So my monstera, I always call them monstera, and other people seem to call them monstera. But okay, I'll try and call them monstera. I'll try and remember. That also didn't suffer too much from being in water, which is quite a surprise. I thought it would. I think they're absolutely bulletproof, these, aren't they? This one's looking absolutely beautiful, and I heard some information about this as on a podcast I was listening, and I've talked about Jane Perrone's podcast. Really enjoyed her interview that she did. I enjoy all the podcast stuff that she does, but I enjoyed an interview she did with a guy called Peter. Can't remember his name, but I think he's into or involved in a new society, a new Aroids society. I think it's called the European Aroids Society, and he was talking about monstera, and he was saying that, if I got this correct, that actually putting a moss pole on here for any Aroid is not really any different than just using a coir one. Now I've, funnily enough, just bought a proper moss pole with real moss in it, thinking, well, you know, they're just not able to get the roots into that moss. Well, he said it doesn't really matter. I can't remember what his reasoning behind it was, but he was saying that they're not the different types of roots. He was talking about, I think he was a taxonomist, and he was talking about the different types of roots and saying that it doesn't really matter if you have a moss pole and you keep it wet or not. So what else have we got going on? I had to really cut back this Gibasis Jose Puig down here. It's coming into flower again. I cut an absolute ton of it off because it was just so top heavy and it just kept tippling over and toppling over. So that's my Philodendron, what is it, Camposportianum, something like that. That's doing really well, that didn't mind getting wet. Philodendron micans, that didn't like being wet, but it's recovered now. We've got another Syngonium down here, another one. Syngonium albo variegata, looking all right. Again, I don't think it's like the real heat that we had. One thing that did suffer was my Kohleria. Now again, they're coming back now, you can see, but there's still a few dead leaves on them. They were about to bloom, and I've obviously lost those blooms. There's a begonia that's died off at the back there. I lost the blooms on them. Whether it'll bloom or not, you know, in the remaining time that we've got before the temperatures start to change, we will see. You've not seen that? That's a piper. So piper sylvaticum. My first piper. And again, I don't know, I can actually see some bugs on that. I'll have to inspect that when I get the lights back on. My beautiful begonia over here, one of my favourite ones. So this is the melanobullata, nice new leaf on that. Fortunately, the really expensive plant did not die. Quite pleased about that. Philodendron Pink Princess, not a great deal of pink on there, but again, happy that it survived. These need a water, you can see my Begonia F. Maysii nigricans needs a water, it's beginning to wilt. I'll have to get that one done. My green gecko, again, beginning to wilt. Have to get that one done. I've not been in here for a couple of days for one thing and another. The kitchen that's being done at the moment is taking rather a lot of time up. I completely lost like all the massive leaves that I had on this Begonia silver lace, but they're coming back. And you know, ditto that for everything else. Had to cut that one back. I lost a ton of leaves on that. But there are winners and losers. This Begonia Black Fang has seemed to have done really much better for some reason. You know, this is what happens. I mean, love that little yellow splash in the middle. Very, very nice. And another begonia over here. So this one is, I always forget this one, Solimutata. Again, that one's doing all right. It's kind of zooming off in different directions. And for the first time, this Begonia sea urchin is really beginning to come into its own. Again, it's taken years for that to take off. Really, really love this verrucosum. That's looking fabulous. I'm really chuffed that that didn't die. Again, I'm in a bit of a quandary over these moss poles. I think I really prefer moss, even if this guy's telling me that it doesn't really make any difference. I think I just prefer having something for the roots to go into, just so that it'll stick to it really and be something a little bit more stable. I've always had problems with Begonia maculata, mainly the light. It really does suffer if it doesn't get the light. Now that one didn't like being drowned, but it's a couple of new leaves coming on it, so that's coming back again. This Syngonium in the corner, that's just again bulletproof, doesn't seem to mind. Aeschynanthus hot flash. It was just coming into bloom just as I went away, and then when I come back it was floating in its pot. This pot up here, this pink pot, doesn't have any holes in it. So yeah, it was floating in it, and we lost all those blooms, but we've just got one coming back there. So whether it will produce some more buds or not, I don't know. We will have to see. Orchids still doing all right. They couldn't really swim very much in the pots that I've got them in here, so they didn't suffer too much. I think for now, here we go, some more at the bottom here. I'm going to have to do something with that. I know they go absolutely massive, these Staghorn ferns, but I'm just falling over it. I've just not got the room. I think that will have to go at some point. And we've got another albo variegata down here, Florida Ghost down there, which is so slow. It was doing okay, but it didn't appreciate sitting in water. So that's what's been going on over here through August. So not everything is looking spectacular, as you can expect with what happened, but I'm glad to say everything mostly is still alive. And where there is life, there is hope, isn't there? They will come back. And as I said before, let's face it, if I hadn't had anybody watering for me, they would all be dead. So I'm really, really grateful to my sister, and I'm hoping she wants to do it again. And you can see here also, these two leaves are new since it was sprayed for spider mite, and since it was sitting in water. Again, it was coming really good. I had 4 leaves on it and then it's just got knocked back. But this is the nature of growing tropical plants in a non-tropical place. I have to keep pointing that out. This is a non-tropical place. I live in the north of the UK and it is not a tropical place. And that's the challenge of it, isn't it? That's the challenge of it. So, on the whole, I'm really pleased with the way things are going. Winners and losers, but that's what you expect when you go away for a couple of weeks. So I hope that's either inspired somebody to give it a go, or maybe the opposite's happened and you thought, my goodness, I'll just stick with tomatoes and potatoes. And that's it for now. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.